We are seeing these big numbers. They are over a course of a number of years. Of course, since 2019, that accumulative total that MPs have earned in outside earnings. And to be fair to some MPs who I've been speaking to in Parliament today, some are a little bit miffed that they're conflating different things in this database. For example, there's the very legitimate earnings of, for example, an MP giving an after-dinner speech and earning some money from that. That's thrown in with the same sort of database as MPs who perhaps work as a doctor or a nurse and earn some money from that. On the side, MPs who might run their own business as well, some who practice as lawyers. Geoffrey Cox, of course, the second highest earning MP in this period, works as a very distinguished KC. And that's thrown in together with some of the donations that MPs have received for campaigning. For example, various companies and trade unions have donated to MPs as well, and that's thrown in with the earnings. So to some extent, this is a bit of a muddled picture here, because you only get one number. And some MPs I've been speaking to today have been a little bit miffed, I should say, that this database sort of presumes them to have this as income when some of them really don't.
Tom, I thought this is a good story. It is a good story because it's a good talking point, right? A lot of people now at home will be thinking, well, is it right that MPs should have another job? Should they be devoting their entire time to serving their people, to parliamentary business? You know, will their focus be elsewhere? But then there's other people, I must admit I'm one of these people, who thinks that, you know, it's not a particularly, hear me out on this, it's not a particularly lucrative career. If we want to attract the very best and the brightest, Tom, right, the very best and the brightest, you do have to incentivise them. And a lot of the people that you might want in Parliament could probably earn half a bar in the city if they decided to. So shouldn't they be allowed to go and earn a bit of a crust elsewhere?
Well, there's one argument to say that a former Prime Minister of the fifth richest economy in the world, of a country as important as the United Kingdom, a former Prime Minister of that country only earning £2.5 million over the course of 3 and a bit years is quite low. If you were to divide that, that's less than £1 million a year. For the former Prime Minister of this country, some people might say that that's really quite low compared to what former presidents of the United States go off and earn, compared to what former leaders of other important countries go off and do. In fact, if you were to take this entire total, a few tens of millions going to MPs for campaigning and winning their seats and indeed all the rest of it over the course of this number of years, compare that to some small congressional races in the United States of America, and it doesn't bear thinking about. There is, to some extent, a lot less money in British politics than some other big important countries. And I think
Oh, OK. Tom is still there, I believe. Good stuff. Yes, we lost you for a second there, Tom. But can I just say, so, look, the money is one thing. I don't begrudge anyone earning a bit of wonga elsewhere and stuff, and I think it shows a bit of business acumen, and it's no surprise that it seems to be more the Tories than the Labour Party who are coining it in. But when it comes to actually the ability to do their job, you will know this. You pound the corridors of Westminster. You are a political beast, Tom Harwood. Can you be a dedicated MP and have another job?
So there are two schools of thought on this, and they really revolve around what it is to be an MP. The Labour Party has proposed a ban on second jobs, but it's very hard when you get into the details of what that means, what that would actually encompass. Of course, to some extent, the role of an MP, and I asked Sir Keir Starmer this last year, would, for example, MPs who write books. There's the Labour MP Chris Bryant, who's written a number of books during his time as an MP. Would an MP hosting a television show? Of course, Esther McVey and Philip Davies host a show here on GBNews, or indeed David Lammy, the Labour MP, hosts a show on LBC. Is that illegitimate to do alongside the role of an MP? And to some extent, the Labour Party's ban on second jobs wouldn't encompass that kind of work, even though it's clearly work. It's work on top of being an MP, but to some extent this work can enhance the role of an MP. Maria Caulfield, the Health Minister, she works part-time as a nurse as well as being a Health Minister. Many people would argue argue that enhances her role as an MP. And of course, if we think about what MPs actually do, what about Rishi Sunak? What about James Cleverly? What about Jeremy Hunt? These are people who focus mainly on being the Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary or the Chancellor of the Exchequer, and to them being an MP is a second job by virtue of being in the Cabinet. Committee chairman as well. If you're chairman of the Treasury Committee, if you're chairman of the Transport Committee, that takes up a huge amount of your time. And being an MP to some extent is part-time on that as well. So it's a really complicated picture. In many ways, you could argue, ignoring outside earnings, even within the structures of government and parliament, these people, many of them, see the role of being simply a backbench constituency MP as a part-time role compared to all of their other political duties as well.